The Panasonic 14-140 versus the Tamron 18-400. I'm just looking for a new all-in-one lens to use on my GH5, and this has kind of been the tried and true all-in-one lens for Panasonic cameras. This just came out, and I was really wanting to try it out in comparison with this. I think there's advantages and disadvantages to both. When I have this on the camera, I can zoom all the way in, just with my fingers, barely moving it. With the Tamron, I go to zoom in, and I actually have to move my entire hand around. And there's actually kind of like a peak where you have to get over it to get to the 400. It's like, it's easy, 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 harder, 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 hard, and then it drops into the 400. This has optical stabilization. This also has optical stabilization, but it does not transfer through the metabones to the GH5. At least I couldn't get it to. You're kind of depending on the sensor stabilization on the GH5, whereas you can get the dual IS with this lens. They both have autofocus. This lens has a zoom lock, so you can lock that and prevent it from coming out. I never actually had a problem with this dropping. With the Panasonic, we're talking about fly-by-wire focusing, electronic focusing. This is an actual physical, manual focus ring. To go from focused all the way in to all the way back, as you can see right here, there's not much distance. That's a plus and a minus. If you like to be extremely particular about your focus point, you might not like this because you can jump from close up to far away very, very quickly, so it's really kind of hard to fine-tune your focusing. For me, I'm using this all-in-one lens in the field. We do outdoor television stuff, and so I want to be able to jump between something that's close up and far away fairly quickly. I don't want to have to hunt for something, whereas with this, sometimes I'm going one way and then I find, oh, I have to go back the other way, or I actually have to take the time to look at the focus indicator on my screen on the GH5 to see which way I'm going, because there's no stops to it. I can keep going. I can twist and twist and twist. It's not a manual focus ring, it's a fly-by-wire. First test I want to do is just show you the focal length difference between the 14-140 and the 18-400. Seeing as the 18-400 is on a speed booster, that's going to back it out a little bit from what it would be. This is all the way backed out on the Tamron. I'm going to punch it all the way in, and that's 400. All right, then now we have the Panasonic all the way backed out, and then all the way zoomed in. The Tamron actually looks wider. I know this is saying 18 mil, but seeing as this is at 14 mil without any type of a speed booster, and the Tamron is wider than the Panasonic, I'm guessing that the speed booster is effectively turning this into, like, I don't know, maybe a 13 millimeter, 12 millimeter. I thought initially I was going to get a wider shot with the Panasonic. I actually got it with the Tamron. The other thing I really wanted to check out was the image stabilization on the Tamron versus the Panasonic. Obviously the Panasonic is native glass, and it also has image stabilization inside of the camera that works in compatibility with the GH5, so you get that dual IS capability. Whereas with the Tamron, it does have vibration control in the lens, but after testing it, I realized if it wasn't actually working, it definitely was not helping at all. So I don't know if it's actually transferring electronically through the speed booster. But we do have stabilization on the sensor in the GH5, so we still get that stabilization. So the question is, does the Tamron do very good handheld? And if it does, how good? And how does it compare to the handheld capabilities with the 14-140 from the Panasonic? So I got these flowers over here, and I'm just going to start all the way backed out here on the Tamron. I'm at 18, and then I'm going to zoom all the way in. And I'm just curious. Wow. So I'm at 400 millimeters right now. That's not bad at all for 400 millimeters with only the sensor on the GH5 being what's stabilizing that shot. Now I'm at 200. Not bad. I'm going to back it down to 100. 100 is extremely stable. Let me go ahead and switch it out with the Panasonic. So backed out here on the Panasonic. I'm going to zoom all the way in to 140. Very stable. It's not really fair to compare how the Tamron's stabilizing at 400 millimeters with this being stabilized at 140. So let's do a quick test. I'm shooting right now at 140. And I'm trying to hold relatively still. It's about 140 right there. Now I just want to test on the wide side of both of these lenses. How do they do as far as stabilization goes with walking? Does the dual IS really stand out in the Panasonic, or is it, again, maybe not as noticeable as I thought it was going to be? So I'm just following Jonathan right now. Walk a little bit faster. Well, I'm going to put it up to my eye and just so I can get a little bit better. All right. I just want to get a better shot, better feel for it. It's almost like I'm on a gimbal, honestly. Wow, pretty impressed. I'm going to try that Lumix. So let's go ahead and walk with this. All right, I'm going to put it up to my eye again so I can. Just in the screen, I don't know if I can tell the difference without like looking at it in the computer, because they both seem really stable. So obviously with the Tamron, the only stabilization we're getting is in the sensor on the GH5. With the Panasonic, we're getting that sensor and we're getting the lens. So honestly, I think it just makes me that much more impressed with the GH5's image stabilization on the sensor. It's pretty crazy. So autofocus doesn't look very promising right now for photos. I'm not even going to test it with video. I don't even think it's worth it. The GH5 already has a horrible time with video autofocus. Hopefully that will be fixed in the new firmware update. I'm going to shoot this bush right here. 1, 2, got it at 2 seconds. 1, 2. Well, it seems to be locking on with the pinpoint autofocus. It's just not very snappy like it actually is. It has to hunt for it. Like, I'm gonna just take a picture of this basketball hoop. 1, 2, 3. And locked on pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and punch all the way into 140. 1. Barely got to 1 second on that. 1. 1. That was like a half second. Every single time it's not taking me more than 1 second to focus on this. So if you're looking for a fast autofocusing picture lens, at least if you're trying to do it on the GH5, I don't think you'd want to go with the Tamron. It's crazy windy out here, but another thing that I wanted to talk about was the extended teleconverter that the GH5 has and allows you to do. I have it custom set to this little button right here beside the lens. And so I can hit it real easily with my pinky finger, but I'm gonna go ahead and go all the way into 140. Not bad. Now I'm gonna hit the teleconverter, enable that. So you can see how much more it punched in. It's almost like you gained another 80 millimeters, but you're not losing any quality. It's just punching in on the sensor, similar to what the GH4 was doing when you entered 4K mode. It doesn't do that now with the GH5, but they still give you the option to do that if you want, which in my mind is pretty awesome because you gain a whole lot more of an additional focal length with whatever lens you're using in video mode. It's only available in video mode. In photo mode it doesn't work. So I go all the way in to 400 millimeters. It's really tricky. At 400 millimeters with the Tamron, it's wanting to grab, and if I'm really stable, it will give me a steady shot. But as soon as I move it just a little bit, the movement is very, very choppy on that 400 millimeters. But I know if I back it down to 200 or 100, it's gonna do a lot better job. So I'm gonna enable the teleconverter, and then I'm gonna see what my millimeter would have to be to get pretty much the same exact shot I just got, but a little bit more stable. Yeah, so that's a lot better. And I was at about 300, 280 millimeters, so I didn't have to be all the way in at 400. I gained a little bit of stabilization because I was using the extended teleconverter in the camera, and yeah, it all worked out. 200 is about the stop limit for me when it comes to usable stabilization. But if you really need to get out to that 400 millimeter range, I would just hit that teleconverter and go punch into 280, because it's going to be pretty equivalent, and you're going to save yourself a little bit of shakiness. You're going to keep your image just a little bit more stable. The other reason that I really was interested in picking this lens up was because of the macro capabilities. And let's just test them out real quick and see. At 18 millimeters, let's see how close we can get to this flower. All right, right there. That's about as close as I'm able to get. I'm just gonna go ahead and punch it into 100 mil. And let's see how close we can get at 100 millimeters. I'm gonna go ahead and do it all the way into 400. Starting to look a little bit jittery at 400. I think mainly just because I'm getting into that range where the stabilization is really having a tough time. Let me try that Panasonic. I'm just curious how close I can get with that in comparison. All right, so I'm gonna start at 14 millimeters. Let's see how close I can get. Right there. That's not bad. Let me try 140 millimeters. That'll be the real key. I'm pretty sure the Tamron's gonna beat the Panasonic out of the water when it comes to macro video or photography. So hopefully that footage was helpful to you when you're trying to make a decision maybe on the next all-in-one zoom that you get for the GH5 or GH4. For me personally, I think I'm gonna go with the Tamron. Being able to go to 200 and 300 and be able to pop that extended teleconverter on in camera and get a little bit of extra distance without sacrificing stabilization, I really, really like this as a go-to lens. Plus, it's actually wider than the Panasonic lens. And I mean, when you're using the Tamron on the speed booster, you also get additional light. So I mean, with the Panasonic, you're stuck at 3.5, I think. This will go down to, I believe, 2.5. The last thing to talk about would be the price. This lens, and this lens alone, is around $700, give or take. For under $700, I bought this lens. I also got a polarizer filter, an ND filter, and a UV filter. I got a neoprene case. I got this monopod. It actually extends out to probably, looks like 4 foot or so. And I got this bag. I think you're probably gonna get a lot more bang for your buck using the Tamron. That's assuming you may already have a speed booster. If you don't have a speed booster, then you have to factor in the price of buying a speed booster, which obviously jacks it up so that the Tamron with the speed booster would be a little bit more expensive. But I already use a lot of other Canon glass. I use Sigma glass that has a Canon mount, so I use a lot of stuff on the speed booster already. Thanks for watching. As always, links are gonna be in the description. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you wish that I would have done something differently, feel free to comment, let me know. And I hope you guys have a great week. I am going to go grab something to eat. Not because I haven't eaten a thing, but because there's a lot of good food in the kitchen. See ya. That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Like a chicken wrap.
Just gotta put it fast forward.
Like a steak and cheese wrap. Pepper jack.